He thought she'd never amount to anything. He dumped her because his powerful family said she wasn't good enough, leaving her broke, heartbroken, and secretly 5 weeks pregnant with twins he would never know about. Sofia didn't just survive. She raised those twins alone, buried her mother, worked endless nights, and built an empire from pain. 8 years later, she unveils Northbridge Hope Medical Center, the hospital she founded and owns. On opening day, Ryan stands among colleagues, flashing his confident smile, ready to shine in his new prestigious job, until Sofia arrives. She steps forward powerfully, surrounded by her entourage, her 7-year-old twins looking flawless in designer outfits. His smile disappears like it was never there. Suddenly, the twins spot him, break away, and run straight to him with pure joy. "Are you our daddy? Mommy showed us pictures." The crowd gasps. Ryan's face drains of color as he realizes these perfect children are his, and the woman he abandoned now holds all the power. Some women don't need revenge. They just need time, and 2 perfect twins to deliver the message. If you're feeling that karma energy, do me a huge favor. Like this video, subscribe and hit the bell, and let me know in the comments. Where on earth are you watching from right now? But how did Sofia go from a heartbroken college student to the powerful woman who built an entire hospital empire? Let's go back to the very beginning, to the day she met Ryan Caldwell, and how one devastating breakup changed everything. Sofia Monroe had never felt luckier than the day she met Ryan Caldwell. He wasn't just brilliant, he was magnetic, the kind of man who commanded attention without trying. He was in the medical department, she was in public health administration. Yet somehow their worlds collided during a shared campus project on community health initiatives. He noticed the way she spoke passionately about helping underserved families, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about change. She noticed the quiet intensity in him, the way he solved problems effortlessly, and the way he always had just enough patience to answer her endless questions. For months, they had fallen into an easy rhythm. Study sessions in the library turned into late-night walks through the campus gardens. He would wait outside her dorm, checking if she was all right after a long day. She would bring him coffee just the way he liked it, never too sweet, always hot. In many ways, they were perfect for each other, even if their paths were supposed to be different. But perfection, Sofia soon learned, was fragile. Ryan's father, a powerful man with connections that stretched from hospitals to politics, had noticed the change in his son. Ryan had always been destined for greatness, and now he was spending hours with a girl from another department, someone the elder Caldwell deemed inconsequential. It started subtly. Phone calls that went unanswered. Cancelled study sessions. Ryan's eyes would dart away when his father mentioned plans for the summer internship or conferences that could shape his career. Sofia tried to ignore it, chalking it up to stress or deadlines. But deep down, she felt the pull of something she couldn't name, a distance that grew with every passing day. One evening, after a particularly long week, she met him at their usual spot under the old oak tree behind the library. The autumn wind carried the smell of dry leaves, the kind of crisp air that should have felt romantic. Instead, it felt like a prelude. "Ryan, what's going on?" Sofia asked, her voice steady even as her stomach tightened. He hesitated, hands stuffed into his jacket pockets. He avoided her gaze, staring at the cobblestones beneath them. "Sofia, I can't do this anymore." Her heart skipped. "What do you mean?" He finally looked at her, eyes conflicted, shadowed with guilt. "I mean us. I can't be with you. Not now. Not ever. My father, he has plans for me. I can't." "Plans?" Her voice rose, disbelief and hurt mingling together. "You mean, because of him? Because of what he wants?" Ryan shook his head. "It's not just that. You're amazing, Sofia. You're brilliant. You care so much. But I can't risk my future. I can't risk my career. I have to think about what comes next. My family, they expect me to marry someone who fits our life. Not someone like me." Sofia's hands trembled. She had spent months believing in them, in what they were building together. She had trusted him with her dreams, shared her fears, confided in him about her mother's failing health and her struggles with tuition fees. And now, he was walking away. "So this is it," she whispered, voice barely audible. "All the nights, all the promises, nothing." Ryan swallowed hard. "I promised. I'll make sure you're taken care of. But I can't be with you. I can't." The words cut deeper than any argument, any betrayal could have. Sofia's world tilted, a quiet devastation settling around her. They had never spoken of marriage, never spoken of forever. But in her heart, she had assumed that love mattered more than anything else. She was wrong. The next week, as Sofia tried to pick up the pieces, a strange nausea made her pause during a late-night study session. A small test at the pharmacy confirmed what she hadn't expected. She was pregnant. Only 5 weeks along. Ryan had no idea, and she couldn't even begin to tell him. The breakup had left too many raw edges, too much bitterness in the air. Maya, her closest friend since freshman year, noticed the sudden change in her. "You've been different lately," she said one evening, brow furrowed, arms crossed. "Something's up. I can tell." Sofia hesitated, gripping the small positive test in her hand. Finally, she whispered, "I'm pregnant." Maya's eyes widened. "With Ryan?" Sofia nodded, fighting back tears. 5 weeks. I just found out. He doesn't know. He left me." Maya's expression softened, a mix of concern and determination. "Then we handle this. Together. You're not alone, Sofia. Not now. Not ever." And just like that, a new chapter began. One without Ryan, one where Sofia had to fight not just for herself, but for the life growing inside her. She worked during the day, managing part-time jobs, and studied at night. Maya was with her every step, pushing her when she wanted to give up, reminding her that she was stronger than anyone else's expectations. There were moments of heartbreak that never left her. Letters Ryan never sent, calls she never received, the small whispers of doubt that crept in during the quiet hours of the night. But Sofia's resolve hardened. The baby, her twins, needed more than promises. They needed a mother who would fight, who would survive, who would build something enduring. The weeks after Sofia discovered she was pregnant were some of the hardest she had ever faced. The nausea came in waves, leaving her drained before the day even began. Her mother, Elaine, had been sick for years, and now her health was declining faster than Sofia could manage. Hospital bills stacked on the kitchen counter like small towers of worry, each one a reminder that the life they once had was slipping through their fingers. Maya became her anchor. She would sit with Sofia for hours, helping her plan meals that could calm the queasiness, reminding her to take vitamins, and pacing the apartment when Sofia felt overwhelmed by everything. Work, school, the uncertainty of a future without Ryan. "You can do this," Maya said one evening, brushing a stray hair from Sofia's face as she rested on the couch. "You're already doing it. Look at you. You're surviving." Surviving wasn't easy. Sofia worked double shifts at a local clinic while studying at night. The small grants she had earned from scholarships barely covered tuition, and every unexpected expense was a storm she had to weather alone. People whispered when she walked into the clinic wearing a loose cardigan over her growing belly. She could hear the judgment in their eyes, the questions they didn't ask aloud. But she ignored it. For the first time, the life inside her mattered more than the opinions of strangers. Ryan didn't know. He didn't even reach out. Some days, the thought of him felt like a phantom ache in her chest. Other days, it was pure anger, burning hotter because he had left her at the exact moment she needed him most. His promises of support, the words he had spoken under the oak tree, were meaningless. He had walked away, and she had to survive without him. Her mother's condition worsened. Elaine could barely get out of bed, her skin pale and thin. Sofia would sit beside her, massaging her hands, feeding her broth, whispering reassurances she didn't entirely feel. There were nights when Elaine would wake up gasping, and Sofia would rush to the phone to call the clinic, praying someone would pick up in time. Those nights left her trembling, exhausted, and sometimes she questioned whether she could handle it all. Maya never let her question herself for too long. "You're not weak," she would say. You're the strongest person I know. You've got this because you have to. You can't not. And somehow, Sofia did. She counted weeks quietly, tracking the baby's growth with careful diligence, hiding her belly under loose clothing, hiding her fears from the world. Every kick, every flutter, was a reminder that she wasn't alone. Every day she survived was proof that she could fight. Then came the day when reality hit harder than any financial problem or sleepless night. Elaine had a severe infection, one that required hospitalization. Sofia sat in the waiting room, gripping Maya's hand, staring at the sterile walls and the smell of antiseptic. The fear in her chest was heavy, almost paralyzing. She thought about the baby, about the life they were building, and wondered if it would ever matter. Hours passed like days. Finally, a doctor emerged. Elaine was stable for now, he said, but she would need round-the-clock care once she returned home. Sofia nodded, swallowing back tears. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her. She had no choice but to keep going, to push forward no matter how impossible it felt. In the evenings, after Elaine was settled in her bed, Sofia would sit in the dim light of her apartment, cradling her belly, speaking softly to the tiny life growing inside her. I know you don't understand me yet, she whispered one night, but I promise, I'll keep you safe. I'll make sure you have everything you need, even if your father isn't here. Maya sat beside her, her hand resting over Sofia's. And I'll help you, she said. You're not doing this alone. We'll get through it together. Promise me you'll let me. Sofia nodded, feeling a fragile sense of hope bloom amidst the exhaustion. She had no illusions about what lay ahead. Raising a child alone, managing her mother's health, and finishing her studies, all of it seemed insurmountable at times. But with Maya by her side, she could take it one day at a time. The world outside continued, oblivious to the life-changing events happening in Sofia's small apartment. Ryan remained absent, unaware that she was carrying his child. He continued his career trajectory, oblivious to the growing connection between his past and the family he had abandoned. Every letter he didn't send, every call he didn't make, became a silent testament to the life Sofia was determined to build without him. Through it all, Sofia discovered reserves of strength she hadn't known existed. She learned to navigate the hospital corridors with confidence, manage patient records efficiently, and advocate for her mother's care with calm determination. Each day was a battle, but each day was also a small victory. By the time she reached the end of the first trimester, Sofia had made a quiet promise to herself. She would survive, not for revenge, not for recognition, but for the tiny life she carried and for the mother who had given her everything she could. And when the day came that Ryan finally realized what he had lost, she would be ready. Maya squeezed her hand, whispering one last encouragement before leaving for the night. You're going to be amazing. Both of you. You and the baby. I've seen it already. Sofia watched the door close, the apartment silent except for the hum of the heater. She took a deep breath, resting a hand on her belly, and whispered, "We'll get through this. Just the two of us, for now." Sofia's world had shrunk to the small apartment she shared with her mother. The air was always thick with the scent of antiseptic and medicine, and the soft hum of the oxygen machine had become a constant background noise. Every morning, she woke before dawn to prepare breakfast and medications for her mother, then rushed off to her day job, returning late to a home that felt smaller and heavier with every passing week. Sleep was rare, and rest even rarer, but she didn't allow herself to complain. There was no one to complain to. Ryan was already a memory, a shadow that had left her with a secret and an ache she had no words for. She hadn't told him, of course. How could she? They had broken up before she even realized the pregnancy. The test had been a surprise, a shock that had left her stomach twisting with fear and disbelief. For a moment, she had considered calling him, telling him what she knew. But the man she had loved, the man who had whispered promises of forever, had vanished the moment her future became inconvenient. The thought of reaching out now felt absurd, almost cruel. He didn't know, and she couldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing. Her days blended into nights of work, study, and care. She cleaned offices, tutored younger students, and worked shifts at the local clinic whenever they needed extra hands. During breaks, she read medical textbooks, parenting guides, anything that could help her prepare for a life that no one had planned for her. And always, she returned to her mother's side, where the faint smile she received in return kept her moving forward. But then the sickness grew worse. Her mother's coughs became sharper, her breathing more labored. Each trip to the hospital felt like a gamble. Each doctor's visit a reminder of the clock ticking too fast. Sofia often held her mother's hand in the middle of the night, listening to shallow breaths, willing her to last a little longer, to let her live until the children arrived. And then, one night, it happened. Her mother passed while Sofia slept beside her, fingers intertwined. She woke to silence, to a room that smelled faintly of soap and sorrow. There was no cry, no final words, only the absence of the person who had been her anchor. Tears came anyway, long and unrelenting, but even in grief, Sofia forced herself to rise. She had no choice. The twins needed her. She whispered promises into the quiet apartment, promises to survive, promises to love, and to give them what her mother could no longer. The days that followed were a blur of preparation and anxiety. Doctor's appointments, prenatal vitamins, arranging the smallest apartment to be safe for newborns. She did it all alone, learning quickly that resilience was a muscle that grew only through constant use. Some nights, exhaustion pressed her to the floor, and she would let herself cry quietly, letting her grief out before forcing herself to rise again. Finally, the day came. She delivered her twins in a small hospital, surrounded by kind nurses who sensed her exhaustion and did their best to comfort her. When she held them for the first time, tiny fists curling against her fingers, she felt an ache so deep it nearly broke her. These little beings were all she had, and suddenly the world, harsh and unkind as it had been, felt a little softer, a little more like something worth surviving. She named them carefully, whispering each syllable, thinking of her mother and the strength she had been given. And though she had no father, no partner, no promises of support, Sofia felt a small spark of something she had never allowed herself before, hope. Even as the twins slept in the small bassinet she had managed to afford, Sofia sat beside them and thought about the years ahead. There would be struggles, undoubtedly. Nights of exhaustion, bills that seemed insurmountable, moments where she would want to give up. But there would also be love, laughter, small victories, and the kind of growth that only comes from hardship. And she would face it all head-on, because she had no choice, and because she now carried not just life within her, but the future of two beautiful little souls who depended entirely on her. The first weeks with the twins were a trial unlike anything Sofia had imagined. Nights were relentless, with one crying for milk while the other cooed in confusion. Her arms ached, her back ached, and her eyes burned from exhaustion, but she couldn't let herself stop. She whispered soft encouragements to the babies, promising that she would give them everything they needed, even if it meant giving up everything she had. During the day, she returned to work, managing shifts at the clinic and tutoring when she could. Every spare minute was spent reading parenting books, studying healthcare guides, or planning ways to improve the small apartment they now called home. Sleep became a luxury, meals often skipped, and yet she pressed on. The pain of her mother's absence never left, but she carried it quietly, using it as fuel. She couldn't allow grief to paralyze her. Some days, a neighbor would knock, bringing over a casserole or offering to watch the babies for an hour. Sofia appreciated it, but she couldn't rely on anyone. She had to make this work on her own. Every small victory, a full night of sleep, a successful day at work, a baby smiling for the first time, felt monumental. Maya, her closest friend from school, became her lifeline. They had reconnected after Sofia gave birth, and Maya never failed to check in, to offer advice, or just to sit quietly while Sofia vented. "You're doing more than anyone could ask," Maya said one evening, helping Sofia organize a pile of bills. "You're surviving, Sofia. That's enough." Sofia smiled faintly, though exhaustion weighed on her like a heavy blanket. Survival was all she had left, but it was everything she needed to cling to. Sofia's mornings began before sunrise, making formula and preparing bottles. By day, she managed her tutoring sessions and clinic shifts, and by night, She studied, planning a future where she could do more than just survive. Her mind often drifted to Ryan, the man who had vanished when he should have stayed. She didn't expect him to return, and she didn't want him to. Her life was no longer his to influence. And yet, the bitterness lingered, a quiet ache beneath her resolve. Slowly, she began to see small rewards for her tireless effort. A promotion at the clinic, a scholarship opportunity, recognition from the local community for her dedication to patients and families. Each acknowledgement was a reminder that she could shape her own future. She began making lists, jotting down ideas for programs that could help struggling parents like herself. The spark that had been dimmed by loss and exhaustion slowly flickered to life. One evening, after a long day, Sofia sat with her twins asleep in the bassinet, her notebooks open across the kitchen table. Maya had just left after helping her finish lesson plans for the next day. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater and the occasional murmur from the babies. Sofia leaned back, stretching sore arms, and let herself breathe for a moment. She thought about the years ahead, the battles she would have to fight alone, and the determination it would take to ensure her children had a life she never had. Even as doubt whispered in the quiet corners of her mind, Sofia pushed it away. She had survived loss. She had survived betrayal. And now, she would survive everything else life threw at her. There were moments of despair, too. Bills she couldn't pay, moments when the twins cried in unison and she didn't know how to calm them, nights when exhaustion made her vision blur. But she kept going. Every day was a small triumph, a step closer to the life she envisioned for herself and her children. Maya reminded her often, "You're building something, Sofia. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's happening." And it was. Slowly, carefully, Sofia was constructing a life from the fragments left behind. Her mother's love, her own resilience, and the tiny, bright hope reflected in the faces of her children. Sofia's days began before the sun even thought about rising. The twins' cries became her alarm clock, their tiny bodies pulling her out of dreams she no longer had the luxury to indulge in. After feeding them, changing them, and making sure they were settled, she would sit with a quick breakfast, flipping through textbooks and notes she had barely touched the night before. Every second counted, and Sofia knew she couldn't waste a single one. The nights were still the hardest. The babies demanded attention at all hours, sometimes crying at the same time, their needs competing with each other. Sofia's arms ached, her eyes stung, and her mind spun with worry. What if she couldn't provide enough? What if her exhaustion made her miss something critical in their care? And yet, she pressed on, reminding herself that she had already survived more than most people could imagine. Maya became more than a friend. She was a lifeline. She would babysit when Sofia had exams, help with meal prep, or just sit with her when the weight of responsibility became almost too much. "You're not alone, Sofia," Maya said one night as they folded tiny clothes. "You've got this, even when it feels impossible." Sofia wanted to believe it, clinging to the words like a lifebuoy in a stormy sea. Sofia enrolled in a healthcare administration program, determined to build a career that would give her children security. The days were grueling, lectures, assignments, and late-night study sessions interspersed with feedings and diaper changes. She often arrived at class exhausted, notes scribbled in haste, but she refused to let anyone see her falter. Each assignment completed, each exam passed, was a step closer to the life she had envisioned for herself and her twins. Financial strain was a constant shadow. The clinic paid enough to cover rent and basics, but not much else. Bills piled up, medical costs for the twins added another layer of worry, and she often skipped meals to make sure they had enough. Letters of reminder and late notices came, and Sofia learned to prioritize with surgical precision. The smallest misstep could spiral into disaster, but she navigated it all with a careful balance of desperation and determination. Then came the first taste of recognition. A supervisor at the clinic noticed her dedication and offered her more responsibility, trusting her with administrative tasks beyond her original role. The confidence she had once only imagined began to translate into real opportunity. Sofia threw herself into the work, staying late to learn more, absorbing every piece of knowledge she could. It was grueling, but every small success became fuel for her determination. One afternoon, while Sofia was studying in a cramped corner of the apartment, Maya arrived with a newspaper in hand. "Look at this," she said, excitement in her voice. The local paper had featured an article about young professionals balancing work, school, and family. Sofia's name appeared among the highlights. It was small, almost insignificant to others, but to her it was proof that she was being seen. That her struggles were not invisible. Even with these glimpses of success, life pushed back. A sudden illness in one of the twins sent her racing to the hospital in the dead of night, balancing tears and panic with the stark necessity of staying composed. Assignments had to be submitted, lectures attended, and somehow she managed it all. Each challenge felt like a test she wasn't allowed to fail, and with every trial, she became more resilient. The apartment, once a cramped and chaotic space, slowly became a home. Sofia organized the twins' routines with meticulous care, ensuring they had consistency even in the midst of chaos. She marked milestones in small ways, a first smile, a first word, a first unsteady step, and celebrated quietly, knowing that these were victories that truly mattered. Through it all, Maya never wavered. She cheered the small wins and offered comfort during setbacks. "Remember why you started," Maya reminded her one night as they sat surrounded by books, bottles, and laundry. "You're not doing this for anyone else. You're doing this for them. And for yourself." Sofia nodded, letting the words sink in. They were a mantra, a shield against the exhaustion and doubt that constantly threatened to pull her under. By the end of the year, Sofia was no longer just surviving. She was building. She was learning, growing, and finding ways to ensure her children's future was secure. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every small victory contributed to the foundation she was laying. The twins thrived, her education progressed, and slowly but surely, Sofia could feel the first glimmers of the life she had dreamed of. A life she would shape with her own hands, no matter how steep the climb. By the time the next year rolled around, Sofia's life had settled into a rhythm, though one far from easy. The twins were a little older now, starting to show personality and curiosity, and for the first time, she could see her sacrifices reflected in their growth. They laughed more, learned faster, and relied on her in ways that made every exhausting moment worthwhile. Maya remained her constant companion, helping whenever she could, and often acting as her sounding board when the weight of responsibility pressed too heavily. "You've come so far, Sofia," Maya said one evening as they reviewed another set of applications for scholarships and grants. "You're not just surviving anymore. You're moving forward. And soon, you'll be unstoppable." Sofia smiled faintly, but deep down she knew Maya was right. She wasn't just surviving. She was building something. Her work at the clinic had grown beyond simple administrative tasks. Sofia began volunteering for committees and initiatives aimed at improving patient care and streamlining operations. It was exhausting, but exhilarating in ways she hadn't expected. For the first time, she felt like her decisions and actions were making a tangible difference. Patients thanked her, colleagues noticed her dedication, and her reputation slowly began to grow. Financial strain was still a constant, though she had learned to navigate it with careful planning and sheer determination. She picked up extra shifts, applied for small grants, and found creative ways to stretch every dollar. Every late-night study session, every skipped meal, every moment of exhaustion was justified by the progress she was making. Sofia refused to let circumstances dictate the future of her children. One day, the clinic announced an opening on a project team tasked with designing a patient-focused program for underserved families. Sofia knew it was the opportunity she had been waiting for. She applied, not daring to hope too much, but she poured every ounce of skill and dedication into her application. Weeks later, she received the news. She had been accepted. The recognition was small to some, but to Sofia it was monumental. It meant her hard work was being seen and valued. The project was demanding, and there were moments when Sofia questioned whether she could handle it all. Meetings ran late into the evening, reports needed constant revisions, and she balanced it all with caring for her twins and continuing her studies. But with each challenge, she learned more about leadership, problem-solving, and resilience. The work was shaping her into the kind of professional she had always wanted to become: capable, respected, and unstoppable. Maya continued to support her, often reminding her of the bigger picture. "This is just the beginning," Maya said one night as they celebrated a small milestone on the project. "The foundation you're laying now will carry you far beyond anything you've imagined." Sofia let herself believe it, letting the rare feeling of hope seep into her tired heart. Yet, the road was not without setbacks. A sudden health scare with one of the twins sent Sofia scrambling, forcing her to juggle hospital visits and project deadlines. Exhaustion threatened to take her under, but she refused to yield. Each challenge became a test of her perseverance, each obstacle a measure of her determination. Sofia had survived too much to allow temporary setbacks to dictate her future. By the end of the year, Sofia's efforts on the project had drawn attention from higher-ups. Her insight, work ethic, and innovative ideas set her apart from her peers. The small recognition she once celebrated now hinted at the real potential she had. She was no longer just the mother struggling to survive. She was emerging as a professional capable of making a lasting impact. Through it all, the twins thrived, their laughter and curiosity a constant reminder of why she fought so hard. Sofia's world was still chaotic, still demanding, but it was also filled with the quiet satisfaction of progress. Every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, every small victory had led her here. She was building something bigger than herself, something that could one day provide security, opportunity, and hope for her children. Sofia paused one evening, watching the twins play with blocks in the dim light of the apartment. Maya sat beside her, sipping tea. "You've done more than survive," Maya said softly. "You've grown. And you're just getting started." Sofia nodded, letting herself believe it. For the first time in years, she could imagine a future that wasn't just about survival. It was about success, impact, and independence. By the time Sofia turned 30, exhaustion had become a quiet companion. It followed her everywhere, not loudly, not dramatically, just present. In the way her body woke before the alarm. In how she could calculate numbers while half asleep. In how she no longer panicked when things went wrong, because panic cost time she didn't have. The twins were in school by then. Not a fancy one. Just a decent public school close enough that she could still get to work on time. Mornings were rushed but controlled. Evenings were quieter now. Homework at the kitchen table. Dinner she cooked in batches on Sundays. A rhythm that left little room for dreaming, but enough space for thinking. And thinking had become Sofia's advantage. She still worked in hospitals, but no longer only as staff. She had moved into administrative roles, the kind no one noticed until something broke. Scheduling, resource allocation, patient flow. The boring parts, people called them. The parts that decided whether someone waited 6 hours or got help in 30 minutes. It was there she started seeing patterns. The same complaints in every facility. Overworked nurses. Empty equipment rooms in one wing while another wing begged for supplies. Clinics closing not because they lacked patients, but because they were bleeding money in places no one bothered to examine. Sofia asked questions. Quiet ones. She didn't challenge authority. She observed it. She read reports during lunch breaks. Financial summaries most people skipped. She noticed how often small clinics failed after one bad quarter, not because they were useless, but because they had no buffer, no plan. The first opportunity came without drama. A small community clinic where she worked part-time was about to shut down. The owner, an older man with tired eyes, said it plainly one evening. Rent was due. Equipment leases were overdue. Banks weren't interested. Sofia listened. She went home. She opened the folder she rarely touched. Inside was what remained of her mother's insurance payout. Not much. Never enough to change her life. She had guarded it fiercely, even when she'd skipped meals, even when bills piled up. It wasn't hope. It was safety. Or so she'd thought. The next morning, she made an offer. It wasn't heroic. It wasn't generous. It was practical. A short-term loan in exchange for partial ownership and decision-making input. The owner stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "You're a single mother," he said. "You need that money." "I need stability," Sofia replied. "So do you." He agreed. People laughed when they heard. A struggling woman throwing her savings into a failing clinic. "Another bad decision," they said. They stopped laughing a year later. Sofia didn't cut staff. She cut waste. She reorganized shifts so nurses weren't burning out by Thursday. She negotiated supply contracts instead of accepting the first offer. She focused the clinic on services the neighborhood actually needed instead of chasing prestige. The clinic didn't become famous. It survived. Then it stabilized. Then it made a modest profit. Sofia didn't celebrate. She reinvested. Another clinic. Another quiet deal. Another place no one wanted because it wasn't shiny enough. She didn't put her name on anything. She stayed in the background, still working her job, still living in the same apartment. By the time the twins were 7, she had stakes in 3 clinics. Maya found out by accident. They were sitting on Sofia's couch one evening, cups of cheap tea between them, when Sofia casually mentioned covering a 6-figure shortfall to prevent a facility from closing. Maya stared at her. "That's not savings." Sofia didn't smile. "No. Then what is it?" "Work," she said. Maya didn't push. She never did when Sofia used that tone. The years stacked quietly after that. Sofia graduated, took on more responsibility, watched one of the clinics get acquired by a regional healthcare group. Her shares multiplied overnight. Not billions. Not even millions at first. But enough to change the scale of what was possible. She sold some holdings, kept others, leveraged the rest. Always cautiously, always legally, always with a plan. The idea of building something from the ground up came slowly. It wasn't a dream. It was a conclusion. She'd seen too many patients fall through cracks that didn't need to exist. Too many families like hers, choosing between care and cost. Too many systems built for efficiency on paper, not for people. Northbridge Hope Medical Center wasn't born from ambition. It was born from correction. Sofia assembled the land quietly, brought in partners who cared about sustainability more than headlines. She insisted on designs that made sense, not statements that looked good in brochures. Patient flow before architecture. Staff well-being before donor walls. She didn't announce herself as founder. She let the work speak. By the time construction began, she no longer worked night shifts. She didn't need to, but she kept the same habits. Early mornings. Late nights. No unnecessary displays of success. The twins still packed their own lunches. Still rode the bus. Ryan never knew. Why would he? To him, Sofia had vanished years ago. A chapter he'd closed under pressure, ambition, fear. He'd built his life believing she had struggled, maybe survived, certainly moved on without significance. He never thought to check. So when Northbridge Hope Medical Center neared completion, Ryan saw it as just another prestigious appointment. A state-of-the-art facility. A career milestone. Something he'd earned. He didn't notice the name on the internal documents. Didn't connect it to the woman he once loved. Didn't question why certain design choices felt personal, almost intimate. Sofia watched from a distance as invitations went out. Press releases were drafted. Donors confirmed attendance. Maya asked her once, softly, "Are you ready for this?" Sofia didn't answer right away. She looked at her children doing homework at the table. Healthy, safe, unaware of the quiet wars that had built the world around them. "I've been ready for years," she said. "He just doesn't know it yet." The week leading up to the opening of Northbridge Hope Medical Center felt unreal, even to people who had been in healthcare for decades. Everything ran on time. Inspections passed without drama. Equipment arrived when it was supposed to. Staff orientation finished early instead of late. That alone made the hospital unusual. Ryan noticed it too. He stood in one of the upper corridors late one evening, staring down at the atrium where workers were still adjusting lights and signage. He'd been part of new hospital launches before. They were always chaos. Arguments over budgets. Last-minute compromises. People stepping on each other's authority. This place felt intentional. Every department connected smoothly to the next. Patient rooms were positioned with natural light, not as an afterthought but as a rule. Break rooms were larger than usual. Quiet rooms weren't hidden in corners. Someone had thought about the people who worked here, and the people who would come in scared, sick, and desperate. Ryan didn't know why it unsettled him. During orientation, administrators spoke about the hospital's mission. Accessibility, long-term care, prevention, not just treatment. It sounded good, the kind of language donors liked. But here, it wasn't just words. The systems supported it. He caught himself asking a junior administrator who had designed the workflow. She hesitated. The founder. Who is that? Ryan asked. She smiled, polite but vague. You'll meet her tomorrow. That answer followed him home. That night, Ryan sat alone in his apartment, reviewing patient schedules for the coming week. His wife was out, attending a charity dinner with friends. He should have been relaxed. Instead, a dull pressure sat behind his eyes. He thought of Sofia without meaning to. It happened sometimes. Usually late. Usually when things slowed enough for memory to slip in. He told himself it was nostalgia. Regret that had nothing to do with the present. But this time, it felt different. He brushed it off. Across town, Sofia was packing lunches. The twins sat at the kitchen table, talking over each other about the school trip planned for the following week. Sofia listened, nodded, reminded them to finish their homework. Everything felt normal. That was intentional. She didn't want the night before the opening to feel heavy. Maya arrived just after 8, carrying a small bag of pastries she'd picked up on the way. She didn't say anything dramatic when she walked in. She never did. She simply leaned against the counter and watched Sofia move around the kitchen with calm efficiency. You're quiet, Maya said eventually. I'm tired, Sofia replied. That's not what this is. Sofia paused, then went back to wiping the counter. Tomorrow is just a day. Maya snorted softly. You built a hospital. I built a system, Sofia corrected. The building is just the shell. And the man who left you is working there. Sofia didn't look up. Yes. Does that matter? It doesn't change anything, she said. Then, after a moment, but it will change him. The twins finished their homework and disappeared into their room. Sofia watched the door close, then finally sat down across from Maya. I'm not doing this to prove anything, she said quietly. I don't want a scene. I don't want apologies. I don't want explanations that come 8 years late. Maya nodded. I know. I just won't hide anymore. That was the truth of it. The next morning, Northbridge Hope Medical Center came alive. Press vans lined the street. Donors arrived early. Doctors adjusted coats. Administrators smiled too much. Everything looked polished, controlled, impressive. Ryan stood among his colleagues near the main entrance, listening to speeches he barely heard. His attention kept drifting to the program booklet in his hands. Founder's address, Sofia Moreno. The name hit him without warning. For a moment, he thought it had to be coincidence. Sofia was common enough. Moreno wasn't rare. But his chest tightened anyway. He flipped the page, scanning for a photo. There wasn't one. The ceremony moved forward. Applause rose and fell. He barely registered it. His mind replayed memories he'd packed away years ago. A woman studying late into the night. A quiet strength he hadn't understood at the time. A life he'd walked away from because he was told it was necessary. He told himself again that it wasn't her. Then the doors at the far end of the hall opened. Sofia walked in without announcement. No dramatic pause. No spotlight. Just a woman in a simple, tailored suit, walking with purpose. Maya followed a step behind. The twins weren't with her. This wasn't about them. The room shifted. People turned. Whispers started. Ryan felt the air change before he fully saw her face. When he did, everything inside him went still. She looked older. Not tired. Not worn down. Just solid. Like someone who had lived through storms and learned where to stand when the wind came again. Their eyes met for a brief second. Sofia didn't react. She didn't smile. She didn't flinch. She didn't slow her step. She walked past him as if he were just another doctor in a white coat. Ryan's hands started to shake. The announcer cleared his throat, introducing the founder. Applause filled the space. Sofia stepped onto the stage calmly, adjusting the microphone with practiced ease. This hospital, she began, her voice steady, exists because too many people fall through cracks that shouldn't be there. Ryan barely heard the rest. All he could think was one impossible truth forming, piece by piece, in his mind. The woman he had left behind hadn't disappeared. She had built something he now stood inside. And he had no idea how. The applause faded slowly, but the room didn't return to normal. It couldn't. Something had shifted, and everyone felt it even if they didn't know why. Ryan stood frozen near the aisle, clapping out of instinct, his mind racing faster than his body could keep up. Sofia's voice continued, steady and professional, outlining the hospital's mission, the partnerships, the long road it had taken to get there. She spoke like someone who belonged exactly where she stood. He didn't. When the speech ended, people surged forward. Donors, board members, press. Everyone wanted a moment. Ryan stayed where he was, watching from a distance as Sofia handled each interaction with calm efficiency. She smiled when appropriate, listened more than she spoke, never once scanned the room for him. That hurt more than he expected. Maya intercepted him before he could gather the courage to move. You shouldn't, she said quietly, placing herself in his path. Ryan swallowed. I just need to talk to her. Maya's expression didn't change. This isn't the place. I deserve. No, she cut in. You deserve honesty. That doesn't mean you get it on your terms. Ryan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I didn't know, he said, the words coming out before he'd decided to say them. About any of this. Maya studied him for a moment. That's the point. She stepped aside then, not to grant permission, but because Sofia had already turned in his direction. They stood facing each other for the first time in 8 years. Up close, Ryan saw the details he'd missed from afar. The faint line between her brows. The absence of softness he remembered, replaced by something steadier. Stronger. Sofia, he said. She nodded once. Dr. Collins. The formality stung. I didn't realize this was yours. She met his eyes evenly. Most people didn't. Silence stretched between them, thick with things neither of them said. I heard you have children, Ryan said, quietly. He didn't know why he said it. Maybe he was reaching for something familiar. I do. How old are they? 7. The number hit him like a blow. He did the math instantly. His mouth opened, then closed. Sofia watched him reach the conclusion on his own. She didn't rush it. She didn't soften it. Yes, she said when he finally looked up. They're yours. The noise of the room seemed to drop away. Ryan's vision blurred for a second. You never told me. You disappeared, she replied. Not accusing. Just factual. I was told, he stopped himself. Excuses felt thin in this space. I didn't know you were pregnant. I found out after we broke up, she said. 5 weeks. I called you. His chest tightened. He remembered blocked calls. Messages he'd ignored because he was told it was necessary. Because he believed it would all be handled somehow. Why didn't you come to me later? He asked. Sofia's gaze didn't waver. You made it very clear what kind of future you wanted. I built mine without you. Before he could respond, 2 small figures appeared at Sofia's side. The twins. They stood close to her, one on either side, curious eyes studying the man in front of them. They looked like her, but the resemblance to Ryan was impossible to miss. The same dark eyes. The same set of the jaw. This is him? The boy asked quietly. Sofia placed a hand on his shoulder. Yes. The girl tilted her head. He works here. Ryan felt his throat tighten. I do, he managed. The other boy looked up at him. Serious. Mommy built this place. Ryan nodded, unable to speak. She said people don't always stay, the girl added. But that doesn't mean they didn't matter. Sofia's hand tightened slightly on her daughter's shoulder. I didn't plan this moment, Sofia said softly to Ryan. I didn't want it to be public. Or dramatic. But I won't lie to them. Not now. Not ever. Ryan dropped his gaze, shame washing over him in waves. I want to be part of their lives. That's not a decision you make alone, she replied. And it's not a debt I owe you. The twins looked between them, sensing the weight without understanding it fully. Go wait with Maya, Sofia said gently. I'll be right there. They obeyed, trusting her without hesitation. When they were gone, Ryan spoke again. I was scared. I know. I thought leaving was the only way to survive. Sofia studied him for a long moment. It was the way you chose. She turned to leave, then paused. This hospital exists because I learned how systems fail people. I won't let that happen to my children. Ryan nodded, tears burning his eyes. I'm sorry. She looked at him one last time. I believe you. That doesn't change the past. Then she walked away. Ryan stood alone in the middle of the hospital. He now knew he would never see the same way again. The hospital settled into its rhythm faster than anyone expected. Within weeks, Northbridge Hope Medical Center stopped feeling new and started feeling necessary. Patients filled the waiting rooms. Staff moved with purpose instead of panic. Systems held. Sofia watched it all from a distance. She didn't hover. She didn't interfere unless something truly needed correction. She trusted the people she'd hired. That trust was intentional. She had learned long ago that control wasn't strength. Structure was. Ryan returned to work 2 days after the opening. No one mentioned what had happened. Not directly. But he felt it everywhere. In the way colleagues looked at him a second too long. In the silence that followed his name during meetings. In the weight of knowing the building itself existed because of a life he had walked away from. He worked harder than ever. Stayed late. Took extra shifts. Not to impress anyone, but because he didn't know what else to do with the regret sitting in his chest. Sofia kept her distance. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. Maya asked once, over coffee in the hospital cafeteria, "Are you okay?" Sofia thought about it. "I am," she said. And meant it. She had spent years bracing herself for this moment. Imagining anger, confrontation, collapse. None of it came. Instead, there was a strange calm. Seeing Ryan again hadn't reopened old wounds. It had shown her how far she'd come without him. Ryan requested a meeting a month later. Not an ambush. Not a demand. A formal request sent through the proper channels. Sofia agreed. They sat across from each other in a quiet office overlooking the courtyard. No audience. No urgency. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Ryan said. "I'm asking for a chance to be responsible." Sofia listened. "I want to know them," he continued. "On your terms. Slowly. If that's ever possible." She folded her hands on the table. "They're not missing anything right now." "I know," he said. "That's because of you." She didn't correct him. "We'll start with letters," she said after a pause. "They can decide when they want more." Ryan nodded. Relief and restraint mixed on his face. "Thank you." "This isn't mercy," Sofia added. "It's protection. For them." "I understand." Outside, the twins were waiting with Maya. Sofia joined them, crouching to their level. "You did nothing wrong," she said gently. "And nothing changes today." The boy nodded. The girl smiled. Children accepted truth more easily than adults did. Life moved on. The twins grew. The hospital expanded. Programs launched quietly, efficiently, without spectacle. Sofia avoided interviews. When asked why, she answered simply, "The work matters more than the story." Ryan became a better doctor. Not because he wanted redemption, but because he understood loss differently now. He stayed in his lane, respected boundaries, learned patience. Sometimes, Sofia watched him from afar, not with longing, with acceptance. One evening, as the hospital doors closed behind her, Sofia paused in the lobby. People passed through, unaware of how many lives had shaped the place they walked in. She thought of her mother, of late nights, of choices made with trembling hands, of survival that turned into purpose. She hadn't built the hospital to prove anyone wrong. She'd built it because no one should be left behind simply because their life didn't fit someone else's plan. Sofia stepped outside, the cool air grounding her. Maya waited by the car. The twins laughed about something small and unimportant. And for the first time in a long while, Sofia felt complete. Not because of what she had gained, but because of what she no longer needed.